Welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I am your host, Dr. Melissa Mahon. Join me for conversations about possibilities and tools for having more joy, more play, and way more of you. What would it be like to wake up every day with a wild enthusiasm for living? Hello and welcome to the Wild Enthusiasm for Living podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Mahon, and today we're starting a series on the topic of manifesting. So we're going to start today talking about regulating the nervous system and the importance of that when it comes to manifesting the life that you'd really like to have. So if there's anyone in your life that is working on manifesting and also could use some nervous system regulation, please share this with them. So I've been looking at the topic of manifesting extensively lately. It's something that I've played with before, I've looked at, I've talked about, and lately I've been taking a deep dive into the science of manifesting, the brain-body connection, and how it all connects to the universe, and asking for what we'd like to have, and actually getting congruent with what it takes to manifest the life that we would really love to have as our reality. And one of the things I've been looking at is sort of where the gaps are, where the things are that I had missed before or I wasn't taught before when I was looking at asking the universe for the creation of my life. And well, overall, it has worked pretty well. There have been things that I have looked at, particularly with clients, when things don't seem to line up or things aren't working quite in the way that they'd like to as they're asking the universe for things, but as well as in my own life when there's things that there seems to be some kind of a disconnect. And one of the things that I've really been playing with and gotten to lately is the importance of regulating our nervous system. Because if our nervous system is dysregulated, if we are in a state of fight or flight or freeze, we are not in a vibrational frequency of the thing that we're asking for, because nobody is asking to be more anxious. So when that is the energy that we're functioning from, and that's where our body is showing up, then we're not an energetic match for what we'd like to have. And I'll do another whole podcast on upgrading your frequency to match the thing you're asking for. But no matter what, the first step to that is going to be regulating your nervous system. So I don't want to dive super deep into all the biology of it because I think it's boring for most people, but I at least want to give you a little bit of an overview as to why this matters and why it's important. So we talk about the nervous system, and when you hear things about regulating the nervous system, what we're really talking about is the autonomic nervous system. There is also the somatic nervous system, which is the things that we consciously choose, but the autonomic nervous system is all the things that are sort of automatic. So things like breathing, your heart rate, your adrenaline, all of those things that we don't really have control over our body doing, though when we look at regulating our nervous system, we can start to consciously change the way that we are showing up in our body, which signals to our brain that we are indeed safe. And that's where the key comes in, because while most of these things are automatic, we also can start to change them and have control over them so that we let our whole body and being know that we are safe. So when we're looking at this, within the autonomic nervous system, there are the two parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is basically what's responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze response. So it is there to keep you safe. If you hear people talk about the amygdala, that is part of the brain, that is part of the sympathetic nervous system. So the idea of this is that it is faster than our thinking mind. So if you were walking on a path and your brain registers something to be a threat, potentially a snake, you're going to jump out of the way, get yourself to safety as quickly as possible. And only when your thinking mind catches up will it look and be like, oh, that wasn't a snake, that was a stick that sort of looked like a snake. But your body has already responded, and it's designed that way to keep you safe. It is our oldest part of our brain, and its whole job is to scan and keep you in a safe space. The problem that we run into today is that while this was designed for a life, a society where we might have had to run from threat and or fight to keep ourselves alive, most of us in today's world don't have that as our reality, and it still signals danger at things that are maybe not actually dangerous. So you might get an email from somebody that has a passive aggressive tone, and your adrenaline still spikes, your cortisol spikes, your heart rate goes up. um, you might have digestive issues, right? All of these things pop up as though you are in a life-threatening situation, except that you're not. And so where regulating your nervous system comes in is to let yourself know faster that there is nothing to fear here. You're safe, and it's okay to move forward with whatever else you need to do that day. So the job of your parasympathetic nervous system is to rest and digest. You might have heard that before. So it's basically the system that brings you back to baseline. Animals are wonderful at this because they don't get in the way with all their thinking and overthinking the way that humans do. So if a zebra was running from a lion who's trying to eat it, its sympathetic nervous system is in full alert, and it is running as fast as it can for its life. And as soon as the threat is gone, it gets away from the lion gets bored, does something else. Immediately, the zebra comes right back down to eating, hanging out, sleeping. It doesn't need the same amount of time that we as humans go into thinking, I wonder if it's going to happen again. What's going to happen next? Am I still in danger? Like all of the things that people do, animals don't do. They flip right back into that parasympathetic state. So, our goal is to get ourselves to be in a more relaxed state more of the time. It's not that we don't want to ever have that fight or flight response. It is necessary sometimes. It's also the thing that allows you to slam on your brakes when you're about to hit somebody in traffic. We need that. We need to not be like, I wonder how many feet are between me and that car. Do I need to slam on my brakes? I'm not sure. We don't want that. We want to have an immediate response to keep us safe. That's necessary. But the idea is then to not stay in that state for a long period of time. The problem is in today's society, most of us stay in a heightened state much longer than necessary. And sometimes throughout the workday, throughout whatever you have going on in your life, because we live stressful lives a lot of the time, that we are often in sort of an ongoing sympathetic nervous system state where we are not allowing ourselves to relax and to come back to that state of relaxation. We do this thing called neuroception, which is a new word to me that I've been learning about, where we are always scanning our environment. We are always uh, without thinking about it, without meaning to, it's not a conscious choice. It is the way that our brain functions, and that we are always scanning. We're always scanning for danger and scanning to see if we're safe. So within that, we need to allow ourselves to know that we are indeed safe. So you might have heard the term vagus nerve. It's a big, not as in Las Vegas, but Vegas, Vagus. It's been a big buzzword, I would say, for the last few years. And the vagus nerve is part of the sympathetic nervous system. So the vagus nerve starts at the brainstem, essentially, and is connected to all the organs in the body. And there are varying states that our vagus nerve can be in. And ideally, we're going for the ventral vagal state, which is when we're feeling safe, present, focused in a space to connect to others and are just kind of feeling at our best. However, if we go into that sympathetic state, which we were just talking about, that's when we're anxious. That's when we feel threatened. That's when we might be frustrated or angry. And we also can, if we're in that state for too long, we sort of move into what they call the dorsal state. And in the dorsal vagal state, that's where you start to shut down. That's where you start to feel numb and hopeless. And over time, that is what will occur with ongoing stress. So it's a response to stress that doesn't seem to have an end in sight. So there's varying ways of handling this and looking at this. And already I may have gone maybe a bit too deep into this, but it's valuable to know where you're at. So if you're feeling good, you can kind of know you're in that ventral vagal state. And if you're on high alert, you're stressed, you're anxious, that is that sympathetic state. But when you've hit that spot of dorsal vagal, that is when you're low, you're shutting down. And the reason that's relevant is because that gives you information on how to come out of it. So one of the things you'll hear me talk a lot about, if you've read anything I've written and anything that is to be written, you will hear me talk about the importance of moving your body. However, it's important to look at where your vagus nerve is functioning from in this moment as to how to move your body. Because sometimes if you go from that dorsal vagal, like low energy state into a super high energy workout, run, heavy dance, things like that, it can overload the system and be too much. So you actually sort of have to bring yourself lightly back, gently and with kindness and slowness. So sometimes it requires things like rocking or swaying or doing some light stretching. It doesn't need to, you don't need to dive back into something really stress and intensive, as it won't have the same effect. It'll actually kind of knock you right back into the state as soon as you come out of that. So that's one thing just to be aware of, or even like watching something on YouTube or listening to something that is uplifting or listening to music that starts to make you feel good. You have to start there if that's where you're functioning from. And if you're in the sympathetic state, that's a good time. So that's like the anxiety, the frustration, the overwhelm, the like heart racing kind of feeling, is to start to shake it out. You literally can shake your body and like shake your limbs out. Also, you can put on some music that allows you to move and really shake and really dance. And that starts to heal that system. And also, so important is to breathe. You might have caught my podcast with Emily Russell, where we had a whole podcast about the importance of breathing. But it's the thing about breath that's so important is typically we breathe in relation to the way that our nervous system is showing up. But you can change your breath and it will signal safety to your brain, and then you start to relax. So it almost like kind of hacks the system. So with breathing, you can do something as simple as breathing in for 4 counts and breathing out for 8 counts. Just having that longer out breath makes a big difference. Also, I love 4-7-8 breathing. You can do 5-7-8 breathing. It's not super relevant, where you breathe in for 4 counts and you hold for 7 counts and you breathe out for 8 counts. That will also really allow your body to know that it's safe, because your breathing has gotten longer and deeper, and that signals that you're in a safe space. You can also do things like grounding exercises, which there's a whole host of grounding exercises. So this is something that you can look up online, but probably the one I talk the most about to people is finding 5 things in the room that you can see, 4 things that you can touch or feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And I really thought everybody knew this existed. And only recently have I talked to people about this as though it was common knowledge. And people were like, I've never heard of that before. And I was like, right. So I often have to remember that things that are common to me in the therapy world are not necessarily common to everybody else. So I wanted to share that with you, and that's a great thing to do to regulate yourself. Also, true grounding is, one people might call it earthing, is go outside and get your feet in the earth, get your feet on the grass, connect to the dirt, connect to the sand, whatever you have by you that is earth, and allow yourself to connect to that. You don't have to be outside. You can ask to connect to the earth from anywhere, but it really helps if you can get your feet outside in real earth. And touch a tree, hold on to a tree, hug a tree. There is so much research on the benefits of actually being in contact with trees. And if it's a time of day where the birds are singing, especially that, because all of those things tell your brain that you are safe. Back to that reptilian brain, that old part of the brain where it was scanning the environment constantly for safety. When you hear the sound of birds, your brain goes, oh, there's not a threat here, because if there was a threatening beast there, the birds are not there singing. So just little things to be aware of that you can do to bring yourself back to that ventral vagal state when you're not there. So that's like how to handle things in the moment, right? The other part of this is, how do you handle day-to-day stuff? Because part of it's like handling it, but the bigger thing is to get yourself into a space where you're not just handling your nervous system overload, but instead you are teaching your nervous system how to regulate easier, faster, and with more just regularity, like where like that's kind of your base state, is with a regulated nervous system. And this is where things like anxiety and overwhelm and burnout start to go away altogether, because you're constantly in a state of taking care of yourself and building those things to regulate your nervous system into your life so that it's just part of the way that you function. So there's a lot of tools and techniques I can give you, and I'll give you a few. But one of the things that I found to be so valuable, and I know I've talked about this relatively recently in another podcast, is having a morning routine and an evening routine, and ideally somewhere in the middle of the day too. So something I really had to learn for me is that I needed to wake up with enough time to not be rushing in the morning. And I really had to look at what that was for me and what I wanted to get accomplished in my morning time before I was going to go into a state of panic or worry or anxiety about trying to get out of the house. And my personal routine is getting up and I do a 45-minute Pilates strength workout. I do a 20-minute Kundalini meditation, and then I walk with whatever time I have left. Oh, being aware of the time. It's usually about 25 minutes, but it can range from 20 to 30 minutes. And if I've really done a great job of giving myself enough time, I'd love to walk for an hour. That rarely shows up because I watch the time enough to know that if I don't leave myself at least an hour to get ready, I will be stressed. And so I build that into my morning. And in the evening, same thing. I do a 10-minute meditation. I read for a little bit. I have a cup of tea, and then I go to bed and or put my kids to bed, depending on if they require that day. But those are things I've built into my life that have made a huge change in how I feel every day. And it includes meditation. It includes movement. It includes feeding my mind with things that I'm interested in, and giving myself time and space to wind down. I also don't really check my phone until I've done all those things in the morning. And at night, I usually have my phone up before I go to bed to give myself some space from that constant noise of what's going on in the world. And that's for me. So I always remind people, you figure out what works for you. Know what time you need to be out the door in the morning, if that's part of your life where you have to be somewhere in the morning, and figure out what is a priority to you. Are you somebody who wants to move your body more heavily in the morning, or is that more of an afternoon or evening activity for you? Where do you want to put your meditation in your day? Do you prefer it in the morning? Do you prefer it in the evening? What else would you like to build into your life? I have a lot of clients and friends who really value journaling. It's something I enjoy and I don't make part of my daily routine. It's sort of more sporadic for me. But there are lots of people I know who make journaling part of their daily routine and build that in. Also, you might be one who likes to play with tarot cards or oracle cards and build that into your routine. Again, that's something for me I play with throughout the day. I don't necessarily have a routine with it, but usually I would say mid-afternoon, if I have a little break, that'll be time to pull a card or a few cards and reflect. But you find what works for you, but all of those things help you to routine. First of all, helps you have a sense of safety, and building in specific things that in your routine that include regulating your body, regulating your breath, and allowing your mind space to not be constantly overloaded. So, on top of that, other things that are sort of like daily practices. So, some people really love the whole cold shower thing. My oldest son swears by cold showers. I have friends who do too. It's not something I've ever gotten super into, but from what I understand, it can be extremely helpful in helping the vagus nerve stay regulated. We talked about movement. EFT tapping is something that I do a ton of. I am certified or about to be certified in EFT tapping, and I do lots of sessions with people throughout the day. So that's sort of part of my daily routine because it's part of my work. But if it isn't part of your work in the same way it is for me, if that is something that is helpful for you, definitely you can always find videos on EFT tapping if you want somebody to do tapping alongside of you. And anything that involves singing, chanting, humming, all of that, you have a lot of the vagus nerve is in your mouth and throat. So while it starts at your brainstem, it moves through that area of your throat. So anything that like stimulates your throat in that way, like by making noise, all helps to activate and regulate your vagus nerve. So part of my Kundalini meditation is chanting and using those mantras throughout. So different things for whatever works for you. And we talked about grounding exercises. So just anytime you feel ungrounded, to get yourself back to a state of grounding. And the other thing that's really important is sort of ongoing lifestyle things of, what are you eating? Are you eating nutritious foods? Are you eating foods that your body enjoys? Because then you're not in a state of stress if your body is not trying to digest something that isn't ultimately nourishing for it. And keeping your blood sugar stable. So not having these huge blood sugar spikes in the middle of the day, and truly staying hydrated. I know that may seem, I don't know, something that's like, yeah, of course, I know I'm supposed to drink 8 cups of water a day. But truly, like, being hydrated helps your body to know that it's safe, because of course, if you're dehydrated, your body is going into a fight or flight mode. It's signaling danger because we need water, and enough water to live well and to live, really. So, and I mean, the last part of that is having safe connections with people. If you're feeling dysregulated, or even if you're not, just as part of your daily routine, talk to the people in your life. And it doesn't have to be like, let me pour out my heart to you every day, and it can be, but even just having connection with people and having a safe connection, having people in your life that you feel connected to and that don't judge you and that you're not in judgment of them, and just talking to your family about your day or talking to a friend about something you've been thinking about. All of those things also help you to have an ongoing regulated nervous system because it allows you to have this safe connection, which we actually need as human beings to function at our best on the planet. So, these are a lot of things. And I know this is sort of a lot of information, but the reason I wanted to put it in here is because when it comes to manifesting your life, this is so important because until you're at a regulated state and you like feel at your best in your body and in your mind and in your life, it's really hard to get to the frequency that matches the job that you'll love or the relationship that lights you up or the perfect space to work out of or whatever it is that you're working on manifesting, whatever it is that you're asking the universe for. It's so much easier from a regulated state because that's how you raise your frequency to match that you're asking for. So I hope this was helpful. Um, and please let me know if you have questions about all of this. Please reach out. And if you enjoyed this, I hope that you'd be willing to leave me a review on whatever you're listening to this on. It helps other people to find the show, and it also lets me know what's resonating with you. And I so appreciate your support, and I appreciate you listening and being here with me today. And I'm truly grateful to have you in my world. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you next time. See you later. Bye bye.